What's up, Bucs fans and Pewter people? Bailey Adams from PewterReport.com here with you to kick off a brand new series that will take us all the way up to week 1 of the 2025 regular season, the Bucs' 50th season as an NFL franchise. That right there is the idea behind this whole series, 50 seasons. While there's so much to look forward to with the team's 50th season in 2025, I figured it would be fun to reflect back on the past, dating all the way back to the organization's inception in 1976. Kind of a Throwback Thursday-type series as we look forward to the 50th season in 2025. So before the 50th season begins, I'll be going through 50 memorable games in Bucs history. We're doing it each Thursday right here on the Pewter Report TV YouTube channel, taking it 5 games at a time until we wrap up with games 46 through 50, just days before Tampa Bay's season opener at Atlanta in week 1. Today, we start with the first 5 games of the series covering 1976 to 1988. Of course, 1976, the Buccaneers begin their time as a franchise, and it was not pretty. There was not a lot to love about the 1976 inaugural season or the first 26 games of the team's existence. So this list, as far as memorable games go, we could go with the first game ever, but I don't think many people like to look back and remember that 0-26 stretch. So we will start with 1977, the Buccaneers' first ever win in the regular season. They beat the Saints 33-14. Before there was this Bucs-Saints rivalry in the NFC South and all the fisticuffs and the bad blood between these two teams that Cameron Jordan continues to deny exists, there was this matchup in 1977. The Buccaneers beating the Saints 33-14 under this man, John McKay. There were 2 Dave Green field goals and a 5-yard touchdown pass from Gary Huff to Morris Owens in the first half. And this game really was more about the defense, as things tend to be with the Buccaneers and their franchise's existence. Mike Washington, a 45-yard pick six. Richard Batman Wood had 2 interceptions, a 10-yard pick six included in those. And while Archie Manning would run for a touchdown and throw for another defensive touchdown from Greg Johnson mixed in would make it a 33-14 rout for the Bucs, their first win as a franchise. And of course, the Bucs would go on to beat Arizona the next week for their second win. As the season ended, both New Orleans and Arizona fired their head coaches. It's kind of what happens when you lose to a team that had lost its first 26 games as an NFL franchise. So that was the first one for the Buccaneers, getting that first one out of the way finally on their 27th try. But things would soon get better. Things would get better, especially by the 1979 season. Obviously, the Buccaneers' first playoff appearance coming in 1979. And it took a little while to get there as far as getting that clinching win out of the way. They failed on 2 different occasions. They lost those 2 games, and we're starting to get a little bit of that moniker of the Chocaneers, which they would shake off with a division-clinching win in crazy conditions at the old Tampa Stadium. This was referred to by many as the Rain Bowl. There, as you can see in this photo, wasn't a lot of pretty football here. This wasn't a lot of action down the field, and was an ugly one. It was very much an ugly one, and that was indicated by 77 total yards for Kansas City on the day. It was the Bucs' first shutout in franchise history. And for those of you who don't know or who weren't there, weren't around at the time, including myself, it wasn't a 17-0 shutout. It wasn't a 21-0 shutout. It wasn't even a 10-0 shutout or a 7-0 shutout. It was a 3-0 win for the Bucs that finally got things done to clinch the division and getting themselves a division title for the first time in franchise history. That game-winning field goal coming from Neil O'Donoghue from 19 yards out in the fourth quarter, winning the game and getting the Bucs into the playoffs for the first time. And that takes us right on to our third memorable game in this series, and that is the Bucs' first playoff win. Obviously, you've got Doug Williams leading the way. Here he is against the Falcons that season, but Doug Williams leading the way in a 24-17 win for the Buccaneers over the Eagles. Again, this is before all of the history of the Eagles. This is the very, very beginning, the origins of the Bucs-Eagles. You want to call it a rivalry? We're not sure if we're going to get there, but it is very much There's a lot of back and forth between those two franchises. The Bucs getting the best of things recently, obviously getting the best of the Eagles back in the playoffs a couple years ago as well, and the NFC Championship game way before that. Then there was also this one. There was this game, the Bucs' first ever playoff game, first ever playoff win. There is Ron Jaworski right there, and there is the original Buccaneer, Leroy Selman, number 63, Bucs Ring of Honor member, Pro Football Hall of Famer, the original Buccaneer in pursuit there. This was a game the Bucs won 24-17. 2 Ricky Bell touchdowns in the first half gave the Bucs a 17-0 lead. The Eagles fought back to make it 17-10 by the start of the fourth quarter, but then Doug Williams would hit Jimmy Giles for a 9-yard touchdown to regain some of that separation. And while the Eagles did cut it to 24-17, the Bucs found a way to hold on for the first postseason win in team history. Obviously, the last one, actually, most recent postseason win, was also against the Eagles just last season as the Bucs beat the Eagles at Raymond James Stadium in the wild card round. The Bucs would go on to lose the NFC divisional round game to the Lions this past season, 2023, and then with that win in 1979, they would then move on to the NFC Championship game, which they lost to the Rams. So things came to an end there. But that first postseason win, you never forget your first. And that was a big deal for this franchise in just its fourth season. Getting into the postseason and getting that first playoff win out of the way in their first try. We'll move on now to 1981. I know we just talked some more about Doug Williams. This is another one that was a clutch performance by Doug Williams, clutch performance by the Buccaneers. This was a win and in scenario on the road against the Lions. It was, the winner of this game going on to win the NFC Central. The Lions came into this game undefeated at home at the Pontiac Silverdome all season, had not lost a home game, yet the Bucs came in and they got the job done. There was an 84-yard touchdown pass from Doug Williams to Kevin House in the first half. David Logan had a 21-yard fumble return for a touchdown. Again, going into that defensive theme, the Bucs defense finding ways to get things done. They had a 20-10 lead in the fourth quarter, and that fumble return by David Logan would ultimately make the difference in what was a 20-17 win. It was a huge game for the Bucs, and the fact that they won the NFC Central again just a couple of years after doing so for the first time, awesome. Great job for the franchise. Very, very memorable. What happened next was probably memorable for the wrong reasons. It was the Bucs going on to lose 38-0 to the Cowboys in the playoffs. So not a lot to love there. Not a lot to love in the coming seasons after that. I mean, even especially you go from maybe 1983 on, there were some lean years for the franchise. So for our fifth and final game of this initial video of our series, we're skipping all the way from 1981 to 1988. December 4th, 1988, the Bucs and the Bills. Look at this quarterback matchup. Vinny Testaverde against Jim Kelly. And the Bucs would be facing a Bills team that was leading the AFC. They came into this game at 11-2. They were leading the way in the AFC. This was not a game the Bucs were supposed to be winning, especially when you look at the quarterback matchup. And this would go on to be the Bucs' big upset win, would be their first win against a team with a winning record since 1984. So, 4 plus years of not beating a team with a winning record, and then they take down the AFC leading Bills. It wasn't pretty. It was a 10-5 victory for the Bucs, defense winning the day. But if you can use the term outduel a little lightly here, Vinny Testaverde outdueled Jim Kelly on this day. It was Testaverde's only turnover-free game of the season, and it led to this ugly upset over the Bills. The Bills committed 12 penalties for 100 yards, and the Bucs intercepted Jim Kelly in the final minute to seal the deal, getting the job done and finishing off what was a very memorable win, probably the signature win of the second half of the 80s for the Buccaneers. There was not a lot to love about where things were at that time, but that's where we'll leave off. We'll leave off the first series here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you're enjoying this little trip down memory lane. Some of you might have been there. I know, it's probably funny to be walked through this memory lane by somebody who was obviously not there, but enjoying the research being put into this, enjoying looking back on, of 50 seasons of Buccaneer football. It's going to be a lot of fun this year, and looking forward to continuing this series throughout the rest of the offseason, leading up to week one. Like I said, we'll pick back up next Thursday with 1989 as we will continue with the next 5 games in this 50 most memorable games series. Until then, make sure you're following everything we're doing along at PewterReport.com, PewterReportTV. Obviously, you've got our podcasts daily throughout the week. On PewterReport.com, you've got our PR roundtable up from this week. I'm continuing my Bucs storyline series, and obviously the rest of our staff is fantastic, getting a lot of awesome content out there for the rest of the offseason. And training camp is just a few weeks away, so you're going to want to stay tuned to our Pewter Report account on Twitter at Pewter Report, Instagram at Pewter Report, Facebook, of course, at Pewter Report, and right here on Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let me know what you want to see as the rest of this series goes on. Try to get some more visuals in there for you guys and some more stats and little tidbits for you. But hope you enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next Thursday for another edition of the Bucs 50 most memorable games.